Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for coming back to another session of Streaming School. It is great to have you back here, and we're lucky enough to have Mr. Sam Winch kindly volunteering his time for us once again. A very good morning to you, Sam. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Leon. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm really good, thank you.
I have to say, I wish the weather was as upbeat as your top.
Yeah, a few questions in the Sam household this morning as to whether I'm feeling quite brave, I guess, going on live wearing this top. But hey, there we go.
Hey, it looks super cool, buddy. I've been wearing nearly the same color clothes and the same color stuff for days now. Most of my clothing is still in China, so yeah.
Right, yeah, cool.
You look 100% cooler than me, buddy. Which actually isn't that hard. So yeah, don't take that as too much of a compliment. Right, it's on your face, buddy, and the floor is yours.
Brilliant. Cheers, Leon. Before we start, I'm going to throw out a little challenge to everyone at home. I've been doing the 150 press up in 30-minute challenge. The new one for today is, and stay safe, to do a handstand and try and put a t-shirt on whilst you're doing the handstand. It's going around viral. So it's not my own challenge. I've seen it from everyone else, but I've been trying it over the last few days, and it's a good one. Anyways, there's a little challenge for you. Leon, if you can share my screen, I'm going to crack on with today's lesson.
No problem at all, buddy.
So, as we've got here, you've got the recap of what we did last week. We looked at different methods of training. So we spoke about the interval training, continuous training, fartlek training, circuit training, weight training, and plyometric training. So they're the 6 types of training that we need to know. We need to be comfortable with knowing them, defining them, knowing the advantages and disadvantages. Now, today we're going to go back to the methods of training and talk about how they relate to a specific sporting example, as well as also doing some GCSE PE questions that are specific to those methods of training. What I want to look at after that, if we go to the next page, we're going to look at calculating your target zones of training, talking about warm-ups and the relevance of warm-ups within training sessions. Okay, so again, a lot to get through today, and I hope you enjoy today's tutorial. So, recapping, of course, the 6 different methods of training: circuit training, plyometric, fartlek, interval, continuous, weight, and resistance training. Now, what are they all? So we've seen the definitions already. We worked on them last week. And if I can flip to the first question today, I'm going to give you 30 seconds at home to have a look and link them together. So you've got the 6 continuous training, circuit training, etc. here on the left-hand side. Here are the different methods of training, and then you've got the descriptions on the right-hand side. So can we link them together? I'll give you the first one for you. Circuit training would link, for example, to the letter A. I work at different stations during training, and of course, as I said already, that is circuit training. So give you a few more seconds to see if you can link which one goes where, see if you can recognise them. And of course, in your GCSE exams, you'll have the opportunity to explain an athlete, a particular person, or a description of a sport that links to the methods of training. So we've got, for question 1, you'd have the letter A. Plyometric would be F, because the plyometric training involves a series of explosive movements. That includes jumping, bouncing, and loads of different dynamic movements. That's the word I was trying to get out. Fartlek training, of course, is C, because that is where we look to change different speeds, different terrains, up and down hills, etc. So straight away, fartlek training is an advantage of fartlek training would certainly be a variation. So you could do almost anything if it is fartlek training. A lot of swimming, running, cycling, etc. Interval training, we know we're talking about breaks. So we look here. My training involves periods of exercise followed by periods of rest. So interval is stop, start, stop, start. Think of the word interval in terms of a basketball a match. It's, you have an interval at half time in a football match. It's the interval. So it's another word for break and rest. Continuous training 5, we look at the letter B, which is where we can. My training consists of swimming, cycling, running for long periods, and that's not stopping at any point. You just continue. Just think of the word continue, and you continue working out And think of the mindset there. Boredom can really set in, so it's really challenging in terms of the psychological part of the training. Sixth and finally, weight training would obviously go with E, where it talks about improving the muscular endurance and muscular strength. So they're the 6 different types of methods of training and how they link. So what I want to do today is, if I can share my my screen, what I wanted to do is just give you a few answers to some of the questions here. And apologies in advance for any untidy handwriting, because remember, I am a maths teacher as well. So that would be where my scruffy handwriting comes in. So the first question in your GCSE related to circuit training might be one of the examples. And I've took all these examples from past GCSE PE papers. Okay, so this is an actual 2-mark question that was given in the GCSE exam in the last 4 to 5 years. So here's one. Justify in at least 2 sentences why circuit training is suitable for a badminton player. Okay, so you could put something like, well, my first point might be that you are able to work on a variety of different muscle groups, perhaps. Okay, so that would be one example. And then the second example I'm going to write down would be you'll be able to work on the fundamentals. I'm just going to put here, cut it a bit brief. We're going to put fundamental movements relative to badminton. Okay, so there's 2 examples as to why circuit training would be suitable for a badminton player. So we're looking at a variety of muscle groups. There's one, and the fundamental movements. If you're doing circuit training, you might have 10 to 15 stations set up, and you could work on arms, legs, core, etc. But then also you could do different types of movements. You could look at lunges. You could look at a little Illinois agility station. So there's lots of different muscle groups and fundamental movements for badminton. So there's one example. And if we now, if I can flip to a video, I'm going to show you a circuit taken here.
Training session. The first circuit is push-ups, dumbbell bicep curls, and dumbbell squats. Do 8 to 10 reps per exercise and go through the circuit 3 times. Rest for a couple of minutes if you need to. Then the next circuit is side raises, dumbbell deadlifts, and jackknives. Again, 8 to 10 reps, 3 times through the circuit. Last circuit is tricep kickbacks, bent over dumbbell rows, and a single leg 3-cone touch to work your legs in balance. You would go through this circuit.
So just looking at that example looked at 9 different stations for arms, but it covered arms, legs, and the core as well. So circuit training can really include a variety of different exercises. Now we move on to fartlek training. Give one advantage and one disadvantage of fartlek training. Again, if I share my screen, we look at an advantage and disadvantage. Well, we know that fartlek training can use, first of all, a variety of different activities. So think about the psychological point of view. If you're using a variety of different activities, such as running, cycling, swimming, then psychologically you'd feel, I guess, loads of variation in the type of training. A disadvantage is that you're unable to always to tell if the performer or athlete would be a better word, if the athlete is performing at their best level. Okay, I think. Perfect. So a second point, and this would be a disadvantage for fartlek training, would be they're unable to always perform at their best level. So how can you judge if it's a long distance runner, if they're doing really well related to running, if what they're doing is a cycle or a swim? So although fartlek training has lots of advantages, the disadvantages are also there as well. Okay, so now we're going to move on to continuous training. And I'm just going to tell you now in terms of, instead of writing it down, it says name an athlete that would use continuous training as their main method of training. And there's many that jump out. I think Adam Peaty, who's the swimmer, of course, would use continuous training. He'd swim for hours in the morning. and then in the evening again, his sessions are normally 2 to 3 hours in terms of continuous training. And Mo Farah, in fact, would be a great example, and we're going to show a video now of a regular week, an average week for Mo Farah. So enjoy this video. I think it's a great clip. So as you can see in that clip, Mo's looking at doing around 135 miles a week. But of course, even though he's used to running marathons in that week, he only seems to do one marathon a week. I say only, it's not by going. 85 kilometers sorry, 135 miles in total is not by going. But he does lots of short, sharp stuff. So instead of doing 7 marathons a week, he does some that are a lot shorter than others, and he tries to include lots of variation to his training sessions. Okay, so we're going to move on to plyometric training. Question here says, describe a form of plyometric training and use your answer to explain how plyometric training works to increase power. So again, GCSEs, be aware that they will try and link more than one of your answers to another answer. So if for the first bit you understand that describe a form of plyometric training, where we could say squats, for example, it's a form of plyometric training, and how do squats work to increase in power? Well, of course, using jumps and high intensity over a short distance, so or over a short period of time. So it's about high intensity jumps, bounds, dynamic movements, to create those explosive movements. Okay, and that's what plyometric training looks at. Interval training, what is the main difference between interval and continuous training? Well, of course, as we said earlier, in terms of interval training is about breaks. So the difference would just simply be you have breaks, you have rest periods. Continuous training, you don't, you just continue to work throughout that period of time. And then the final one that we want to describe, and I'm going to share my visualizer again. If we can look at weight training, it says describe the difference between a rep and a set. So a rep would be described as the number of times you perform a certain skill, and of course the set is the number of cycles of which the skill is performed. So again, these can vary. So of course these can vary. If we look at perhaps someone that is wanting to improve their strength, if you look at a weight lifter, they might be doing 3 sets of a few reps. So we might do 4 to 6 reps, because of course they're looking for that explosive power. They might even look to just do their 1 rep max. So that's, of course, that is where you look to do the heaviest weight possible by just doing 1 of them. But they'll certainly look to do no more than 4 to 6. Whereas again, if you look at someone that is used to doing continuous training, when they're working on their weight training and looking at sets and reps, they would look to do a higher set of reps, and they might do less sets, but certainly 3 sets normally seems about the average type. 3 sets of 10 to 12, or 3 sets of 4 to 6, and that will relate also to aerobic and anaerobic exercise, which is what we will move on to Let's see if it's next. Yes, it is. So we're going to look at now calculating the target zones and thresholds. So we spoke about the 6 different types of methods of training. Now what we want to look at is the difference between aerobic and anaerobic. Now, of course, aerobic is linked to the continuous trainers, as well as maybe circuit training, plyometric training perhaps, but aerobic capacity is your marathon runners, your cyclists, your long distance. Anaerobic is your short, sharp weightlifters, 1 rep max, 100-meter sprinters, gymnasts perhaps, depending on the piece, a vault, if they were to perform on a vault. So this is where we're looking at now. And of course, to train effectively, you must know those 3 things. Your aerobic capacity, your anaerobic capacity, and in general, your current level of fitness. So I've got a little description here as to what they all mean. If I can just read out here, the top one, the aerobic fitness is another way of describing cardiovascular fitness. And to improve your aerobic fitness, you need to work between 60 to 80% of your MHR. MHR, of course, is maximum heart rate. Now, we're going to work out our maximum heart rate today. That's what I want to try and do at home with you guys. And simply, you do 220, take away your age. Now, I was going to also perhaps teach you how to work out your pulse rate, which is you obviously count your pulse over 60 seconds. So you might do 15 seconds and multiply by 4. But you also need to know your pulse rate as well. In terms of your maximum heart rate, you've got 220 minus your age. So for me, I'm going to do a little bit of maths for you now. If I can go at 220, let me share my screen with you as well. You've got 220 minus my age, which would give me 180. So my maximum heart rate is 188 beats per minute. Okay, that's the maximum heart rate. In terms of my aerobic threshold, which is 60 to 80%. Well, for those at home, and again, you could use your phone or a calculator. If you just type in your maximum heart rate and times it by 0.6, that will give you 60%. As you can see on mine, 113, if we round it up, is my maximum heart rate. Times it by 60%, and this time I'm going to times it by 80%, which gives me 150. So my aerobic capacity is 113 to 150. Now, I know I've included a little bit of maths in there for you, but it's really important that you know how to do that method. So times it by 0.6 and times it then again by 0.8, that will give you 60% and 80% of your aerobic capacity. Of course, for anaerobic, well, we know that 100% of course is equivalent to the number, which is 188, and 90% would obviously just be, I say obviously, I'm using my calculator, we've got 169, okay? So therefore, I know that my aerobic capacity is 113 to 150 and 169 to 188. What that means is that when I'm working within my aerobic capacity, if I am working outside of these numbers, then I'm not working either hard enough if it's too low, or I'm working too hard if it's too high. Okay, and I move from aerobic to anaerobic. Okay, and of course, aerobic capacity and anaerobic capacity are 2 different types of things we need to be focused on in terms of our GCSEs. Anaerobic is specifically to do with the amount of oxygen intake you need. And you know that Usain Bolt, when he does 100-meter sprints, he actually doesn't breathe, from what we know. And the statistics tells me that within those 9.7 seconds, he takes 1 big breath and then he sprints through without taking another intake of breath, which is fascinating in my eyes. Now, finally, just for the last 30 seconds of the session, we're just looking at warm-up and variation. So I'm just going to give you this one short clip on an accurate warm-up.
And cool down. Some advantages of warming up properly would be overall increase in flexibility, better range of motion, and increased muscle stability. Now, when I say warming up, I don't mean stretching. Okay? So you don't want to be stretching before you're working out, but warming up meaning get the blood pumping, do some cardio sets or some light walking prior to the run, stuff like that, getting your blood flowing. Warming up also makes you less prone to injury. Have you ever taken out a piece of cold meat from the refrigerator?
So just that little video. In fact, Leon, if you can share my screen, please.
Of course, buddy.
So just to clarify on that last video, and we're going to pick up a little bit of warm-up training and the relevance of cooling down in training on Thursday, as well as variation and the importance of regular testing. But just on warm-up training, increase the blood rate, increase the blood flow, increase your heart rate. Also, psychologically, it's to get your mindset ready for the sport that you're about to take part in, and of course, warming up your muscles. They're the importance of warm-up. I can't stress highly enough the importance of warming up and do dynamic movements rather than static movements. So don't start doing all those wonderful stretches and splits before you've warmed up your muscle. Otherwise, there is a good chance of you tearing a muscle, which is very painful. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. There's a lot we got through, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.
You're a gentleman. Thank you so much, Sam. Really, really appreciate it, buddy. So every time I see you talk about exercise, I get slightly envious. I've got a little one not feeling very well today.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, trying to get some board games in while you guys are doing your lessons. So I'm like listening, watching, and then helping little one with moving a bandanaed tiger round the board.
Sounds like fun. I'll leave that with you. Enjoy.
You're a gentleman, buddy. Thank you so much as ever. And thank you all very much for joining for another session. And in the next one, we're going to have a little more board games from me, but you guys are going to have the pleasure of having science. And then you're also going to have hopefully Spanish straight after that. So look forward to, and that's not my company that's made him feel that way. It's he's actually just a little bit ill right now. But are you okay? You feeling better, Gabrielito? Yep, super shy.